It's echoing all through this mountain.
It's so loud. All right. I need earplugs.
You just blasted it in my ear. Oh my God.
Okay, let's do earplugs. Jeez. Need them. No, I never do this. Let's try again. Okay, it's gonna go.
Be loud. Those baby hairs.
What's up, vintage moto nuts? And welcome to episode 16 of A Bike and a Beer, the show where every Saturday I feature a stunning, rare vintage motorcycle with an appropriately paired beer. If this is your first episode, welcome. Glad you're here. Feel free to subscribe in that lower corner if you like what I'm doing. And if you've been joining me every week, I love you for it. Thank you so much for the support. We've got a real earth-shaking two-stroke here, folks, and it bears the name of the beast. Deserves it, too. This, my friends, is a 1964 Montesa Diablo, straight out of España, and it's a real hellion of a bike. It's a 252 stroke. So, because it's from Hades itself, I picked a beer accordingly. This is called 60 Days in Hell. It's a Helles lager, which is Bavarian, and it comes from There Does Not Exist, which is a brewery in San Luis Obispo, which is where I went to college. Just look at me now, Mom. Okay, so, yeah, this looks like a pretty cool beer. It's got a great graphic on the front. I'm going to open it up, and let's see what it's like. I'm just going to say, I know I say they're all good, but this is another great beer, and I can go ahead and recommend it. They also have a tap room in San Luis Obispo, so if you're there, stop by. So 1964 is early for a two-stroke like this to come on the scene and do so well in scrambles. Greaves might have beat him to the punch as far as timing, but not by much, and Huskies wouldn't come for a couple years later. So this bike came out at a time when people were just starting to seriously consider putting away their British twins for something more nimble and lightweight like this. And also at the time, Montesa had just built a state-of-the-art factory in Barcelona in '61, and they were really focused on putting reliable, strong, and fast bikes out there in the world. So this came right during that really exciting era for Spanish bikes, and it's just so great to see an early Diablo like this in original running condition, and boy does it run. We owe a debt of gratitude to a gentleman named Kim Kimball. In the early 60s in Southern California, he started Montesa Motors Inc. and was the first importer of these bikes into the U.S. So he set up a little dealer network out there, and he was really the ambassador for these bikes in the American market. He also coined the phrase Viva Montesa, which I've always loved. Okay, let's take a look at why this bike from hell is so great. Let's start with this motor. 250cc two-stroke, cranking out 24 horsepower at 7,500 RPMs. Woo! And boy is it rude. I mean, it's nasty. And it is loud. It's the loudest two-stroke I've ever been around. And I've been around a Greaves with a bluey pipe on it. I think this takes the cake. If you don't have earplugs in, your eardrums are vibrating. I mean, it's nuts. But this is a great motor, puts out a ton of torque, easy to lift up the front wheel. This is an all-cast aluminum head with a really thick iron sleeve for the piston to prevent warping. It's got really deep fins here around the exhaust exits to help with cooling. It also has special Dykes rings, which are low friction. Original ignition on this bike, which is putting out a beautiful big blue spark. It's kind of funny. I found 3 articles on this bike from 1964 and 1965, and everyone loved this bike, but they all said the same thing. It's hard to start, and I can attest to that too. I've been wrestling with this bike for a couple days trying to figure out the magic potion, and it's tricky. It kind of does what it wants. Sometimes it'll fire up right away, and sometimes it'll make you work for it, like for a long time. But I don't know, it kind of adds to the mystique of this bike. The frames on these are really beefy. Steel construction. They've got huge gussets almost everywhere you could put one, and they just didn't break. It's going back to that, goal of Montesa at the time of make bikes that are really reliable, strong, and fast. But it doesn't weigh too much either. This bike weighs 215 pounds dry and 225 pounds full of gas. I mean, that's the weight of a modern two-stroke 250. So I thought that was quite impressive. When they first started testing these bikes and giving them to magazines to review, they came with 27 millimeter amyls. When they started getting shipped to dealers, they had 30 millimeter amyls, and this one actually has a little bit more modern 32 millimeter amyl for just a little more kick. The shifter on this bike is kind of weird. When you look at it, you almost think it's a brake lever, but it's the same on the top and bottom. And if you're not looking at it, it doesn't seem weird at all. It works quite well. Of course, this bike is equipped with Acron alloy shouldered rims front and rear. 19 front. Doesn't have a 21 front yet. That would come later for motocross bikes. And it's got an 18 rear back there. These drums are Montesa hubs and drums. They have sealed backing plates to keep the sand and mud out. Leading axle front fork here. Originally, this bike would have actually had a fiberglass front fender. They were very brittle. You'd be lucky if they survived one crash. So this one has an aluminum fender up front. The owner of this bike actually has the original fender, which has undergone some repair, but it's just cool to have because it's the original shape, the original fender. Very secure front fender brace here with a ton of secure points. Original paint, fiberglass, 3.4 gallon tank here, and a lovely patina with the original Montesa decals on it. I think this cover or valance is a really nice touch. It's molded perfectly between the subframe, and it keeps all the mud and dust away from the carburetor and motor that's getting flung off of the rear tire. It's also probably aerodynamic, but it's just a kind of unique piece on a scrambles bike. This seat also has great ergonomics, and it's very, very comfortable and soft. The rear wheel also has a quick disconnect system. You pop out the spacer here, and you can move the wheel side to side and get it out without messing with the chain or the drum. These came with an 11-tooth countershaft sprocket and a 40-tooth rear, which put out anywhere at top speed between 70 and 90 miles an hour. That's fast. Kernut rear shocks. When these bikes came out, they actually had fixed foot pegs. This one's been equipped with folding foot pegs, and rightly so. Got a nice little damper up here. Tighten things up if you're doing more high speed and loosen it up if you're doing some low speed. Very simple rear brake system. These bikes have straight cut gears in the primary, and there's no primary chain. That megaphone pipe, man. That's what does it. Another interesting part about this bike is when they were delivered to American dealers, they delivered them without tires on them. and when you were buying the bike, you got to pick whatever tires you want at no additional charge. Very unique. That's the only time I've heard of that. If another manufacturer did that, please let me know in the comments, but I just thought that was fascinating. Alright folks, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of A Bike and a Beer. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I sure did. This is a bike I'll never forget. Maybe someday I'll get to ride it again, but it certainly will leave a lasting impression. With all that said, I'll see you next Saturday with a whole new bike and a whole new beer. Cheers everybody.